Welcome to the Breakup Recovery Podcasts by your host, Barbara Stevens. Discover the wisdom and remarkable insights of Barbara Stevens, breakup recovery mentor, author, and public speaker. Barbara offers programs and solutions for any breakup so you can turn your life around, create lasting changes for the better, and embrace life again.
Welcome to Breakup Recovery Podcast. Thank you for joining me. I'm Barbara Stevens, and Breakup Recovery is a podcast helping you recover from your breakup. In this week's episode, I welcome Martha Bodyfelt, and Martha is going to give you some tips and ideas on how to have an amazing holiday season by yourself. And as the holiday season is fast approaching, I know that some people that have just been through a breakup, separation, or a divorce are dreading this time of the year. So welcome, Martha.
Yes, hi. Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here, and hello, everybody.
So, Martha, let's start maybe with your own breakup story. Can you tell me a bit about that?
Sure. I mean, it seems so long ago. I had been married, and this was, I think, the marriage started to kind of be shaky at the end of 2009. So we were going through 2010, my husband at the time and I, just trying to pretend like nothing was wrong. And then kind of when the bow started to break, it was around the holiday season. So it was at the end of November, beginning of December. And we had that talk, that conversation, which was, we can't do this anymore. I think it would be better if we both separated. So we had both agreed upon that. But the hardest part was he was not moving out of the apartment until the end of December. And so we had decided, we're going to be civil, we're going to be kind. Dang it, we're going to try to do Christmas. It's going to be different, but we're going to try to do it as a couple anyway. And it was probably the worst Christmas I've ever had in my life, because we had all that sadness and all that heartbreak during the time when everybody was supposed to be happy with family and all that, and we just couldn't bring it, to ourselves to tell our family what was really going on. And so we're just kind of going through the motions and faking everything. And it was just a really hard time. And for a couple of Christmases after that, I basically just stayed in the apartment and just wanted to do things myself because I was so triggered by those memories. And, the time heals all wounds. And so it took some work, but even starting, a couple years after that, I really started to looking forward to the holidays as a single person and was able to put kind of that pain of that breakup and that pain of the end of the marriage behind me.
So we'll talk just a little bit later on about some tips and ideas to get through that holiday period. But what things did you put in place so that you didn't move on after your divorce?
Right. So there was definitely a couple of things, and probably the most important one for me was finding a good support system. That I started working with an amazing therapist, and I started doing that even during the holiday season and during the January and February kind of after the apocalypse. I like to term it like that. So I was able to find an amazing therapist and started working with her. I finally told my friends, because I was just kind of holding all of this inside me, trying to project the image of a perfect marriage and being, the perfect wife. And so when I finally started to be honest with myself and, became vulnerable and started telling my friends and, telling my coworkers and then breaking it to my family, just getting all of it out and not bottling it up inside really started with the healing, and then starting to do things that I wanted to do that I felt like I really couldn't do, or I didn't really have time to when I was in the marriage, such as kind of starting to, travel to the places that I wanted to go by myself, trying to kind of create new holiday traditions by myself. It took maybe a couple of Christmases and a couple holiday seasons to really get into the swing of things. Probably the number one thing that I really had to do, and this is something that I tell my clients in my divorce coaching practice, is you have to learn how to manage your expectations. So what do we mean by that? I think a lot of us with our relationships, and when they end, we're trying to figure out how to deal with the holidays, we are really down on ourselves because we're like, well, why am I not happy? Why can't I have this togetherness? Why can't my holiday be perfect? Why can't I have the perfect meal? Why can't I have the perfect XYZ? And so if you're able to take a step back and say, you know what? Maybe things are just going to be a little bit more subdued for a while. And that's okay. Instead of trying to make my home look like an episode of Martha Stewart Living, or make it look like, it's from Pinterest or Food Network or, the Great British Bake Off or something, amazing like that, why don't I just do something and have things that are just kind of simple that I love? And if you expect that, it's just going to be small and simple, then you're not going to be disappointed, and you're not bringing all these expectations up and then feeling bad after it. So I would think that that's kind of what I preach is the number one thing is during the holidays, when you're trying to figure out how to do this by yourself and still have a good time, is manage your expectations. You don't have to give into all the Christmas pressure and any of that. This is for you, and you can celebrate it how you want. The second thing that's very important that I like to tell people is you have to be very, very careful of your selective memory. Now, during the holidays and any time when we're trying to recover or we're mourning a breakup or a divorce, our mind tends to do this thing where it only kind of cherry picks all the good things. Like, oh, well, I remember that amazing Christmas when, my partner just swept me off my feet and everything was amazing. And then when we're hurting and then we're trying to recover from the breakup, that's what our mind tells us. But we forget kind of the rest of the story. We forget that maybe that was the same weekend where our partner had too much to drink. And maybe you got in a screaming match with your partner. And so I say that with kindness, that we like to think that our memories were all these amazing things, and we like to paint the picture of when we were with our partner, everything was great, but it wasn't. And you need to be honest with yourself. And when you can remind yourself of that during the holidays, then you're not comparing yourself and this current single state in your life to this ideal that never really existed in the first place. So that's the second thing I like to tell people. So we've got manage your expectations and be careful of selective memories. And probably the third one, and there's so much combined with this third one, but it's just what I'm so excited to share with people, is you need to learn to put yourself first for a change. Now is the time when you're single and when you're recovering from a breakup during the holidays is to do what you want. Forget the expectations, forget the parents saying, well, we've always done it this way. Oh, well, this is how we've always done it. This is why, even if a tradition that you hate and makes you miserable, now is the time to create your own traditions. Now is the time to do the things that you really like. And now is the time to take care of yourself. And something when I was recovering from my divorce and those Christmases afterwards when I was single, something that I really liked to do was, so I live in Washington, D.C., the capital here in the States, and every Christmas around midnight when the city was emptied out and all the unhappy couples were still pretending like they had a great marriage, what I liked to do was I would take my car to this area in the city called the National Mall, and it was just dead empty. And I would get out and I would walk around and see the giant Christmas tree and look at all of the national monuments by myself. I was freezing because it's winter here, but that's a tradition that I grew to love, and that's not something that I ever did when I had a partner. And that's something that I definitely look forward to every year, and it's mine, and I love it. So, your listeners out there, if you're by yourself this holiday season, think of it actually as an opportunity. It's all about your outlook. It's not, I'm going to be so sad because I'm not with my partner. Yes, it is a fact that your partner is not there, but how you choose to look at it is what's going to make all the difference. Instead of seeing this as a sad and traumatic time, you are now actually given this gift of finding out what you want to do and how you want to celebrate it, which could just open this whole other thing of traditions for you for the rest of your life.
Yes, and it is important when you are single to put yourself first and to do some of the things that you want to do.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes, and I know I was certainly, guilty of this in some prior relationships, is we tend to think about ourselves as a unit. Oh, what's good for the unit? What's good for my partner? Oh, let's do XYZ because what's good for us. And that's great if you want to do that with your partner, but you have to be very, very careful to not lose yourself in that relationship and not to lose your identity. You're still you, and you still have the right for your own likes and dislikes and to treat yourself and spoil yourself sometimes. And so you need to hold on to that. And a lot of times when we get out of a relationship, we don't remember to do that. We don't remember how to do that. And so now this is a time that you can give yourself that gift of putting yourself first and finding your own kind of interests. And you know what, Barbara, like those things don't have to be expensive. You know, a lot of times when people talk about self-care, we automatically think, oh, I quit my job and I'm going to go spend 3 months in Bali. Now, if you can do that, that's awesome. And let me come with you. I have my passport right here. But it doesn't have to be crazy and expensive. It can be something as simple as establishing boundaries, saying, you know, if your mom's being nosy or whatever, if coworkers are being nosy, saying, you know what, I'm not comfortable talking about that right now. Or, you know what, let's change the subject. That's self-care right there. It can be something as simple as saying no to something that you don't want to do. If, you know, you're invited to that friend's awful potluck that you absolutely hate, sorry, my friend, I'm not going to name you, but that awful potluck that it's just terrible food and you're sick and tired of always having to bring, you know, the pecan pie, it's okay for you to say, you know what, I have other plans. I can't come to your holiday, you know, potluck this year. So sorry. And then obviously the other things too is give yourself the opportunity to watch a movie that you haven't seen yet. Treat yourself to an extra, you know, long bubble bath or book that massage you've been meaning to do. So you can do all these little tiny little self-care things. And if you make a habit of that, you're going to find yourself feeling better and you're going to find yourself able to move and heal and move on faster to this next awesome part of your life as a single person.
And I guess getting back to that selected memories, you know how you said that often you can think of all the good things that happen. During the holiday time, when it is brought back into your life that you are single, because holidays are about families and couples and celebrating with other people, some people can fall into that trap of thinking of all the bad things that did happen in their marriage and then get into that cycle of negativity.
Sure. No, you're right. So it's definitely a balance. And there's quite a few kind of traps where, you know, that can happen. And so on that, it's kind of like in life, we need to have a balance with everything. And that is no different during the holidays. And so, you know, that does happen that, you know, you want to lock yourself in your house and you're just thinking about all the bad things that happen. And I understand that because, you know, there's a lot of folks who had very traumatic memories that all kind of blew up during the holidays. And so if you're finding that the holidays are triggering stuff for you and those triggers are making it very difficult for you, you know, to even function, and it's just kind of like making you stuck, I would highly encourage to get, you know, to talk to, you know, a mental or a behavioral health specialist to help you work through that. So that's definitely something that you can do if you're having trouble struggling with that. I know at least here, you know, in the States where I live, and I don't know, I'm assuming it would be the same, you know, in Australia, you know, there are plenty of kind of divorce support groups and single support groups where you have folks just like you who are there, you know, that you can lean on to help you with some of that stuff. And then also you can it takes a lot of self-discipline. It takes a lot, but something you can do as well is work through some of that stuff yourself. Obviously that is not professional help, but something that you can do and train yourself to do is every time you feel triggered by a nasty memory, acknowledge it, that what happened was a fact, but how you choose to process it is what's going to kind of designate your outlook. So, you know, something for me as an example, well, this isn't my example, but it's a family example. I know my mother, her father died during a Christmas dance and he was buried on Christmas Eve. And I know for her, the holidays have just always been very, very sad. And so I know instead of what she has chosen to do, and it took years for her to cultivate, is instead of, you know, kind of mourning and being sad about that, she gets together with her sisters, you know, on Christmas Eve and they talk on the phone and they each share the best memory they had of their father. And so they've chosen that instead of associating the Christmas Eve sadness and burying him on Christmas Eve, they've chosen to kind of celebrate that instead. For every, you know, what is that? For every action, there's an opposite and equal reaction. So for every kind of sad thing, that happened, it is possible to kind of turn it around.
And with you sharing that story, I think listeners can also relate the tips and ideas that you've given to other times in the whole year that might trigger these negative emotions, like it might be their wedding anniversary or their birthdays, or one of the ex's family's birthdays. It was always a tradition. So with these tips and ideas, it's not only confined to the holiday season, but other times in your life where these trigger situations have caused this uprising of these emotions.
Absolutely. No. And I'm really glad that you bring that up, because I think that that's something that we all deal with. Speaking from my own experience, for a few years after the divorce, July 22nd was always a very hard day for me, because that was the day of my wedding anniversary. And, little by little, what I decided to do, instead of kind of feeling bad about that and mourning that, was you can take something else from that day. What was something that you really liked about that day? And how can you incorporate what you liked about that day when that day comes up every year? So instead of, mourning the fact that I was no longer married, something that I remember I had a great memory of was my family. It was a very small wedding. I was in the Army at the time, and so we didn't have a lot of time. It was very low key. But what we did after we got married on the beach was we went to this amazing Greek restaurant and just had an amazing time. So for a couple of July 22nds, after the divorce, I would go and either cook myself an amazing Greek meal or, go to a Greek restaurant. So for me, July 22nd is no longer mourning the anniversary of a marriage that I no longer have, but it's, hey, that's a day I get to eat amazing Greek food.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. I mean, and one of my girlfriends had a really sad, really terrible divorce. The husband, abandoned her. And she had said what she'd wanted to do during her anniversary. She had said, well, I want to burn all those wedding pictures, and that's what I want to celebrate. And I had said, well, how's that really going to make you feel? And then so she came back a day or two later, and she's like, actually, you know what? I am going to celebrate every anniversary now. And I said, well, what's that? She said, I'm going to celebrate the closeness with my mother, because that I remember her being so happy that day right before she went in for chemo treatment. And so for her wedding anniversary is now, it's almost like a second Mother's Day to her now. And that's how she's chosen to, kind of process that. So, I would invite your listeners, and it's to don't think of that day, it's a birthday or an anniversary or something like that, or, any of those. You don't need to think about it, kind of a sad context, but there's at least a handful of all these kind of peripheral things that were going on that day. And one of those things can really kind of make you feel good, and you can pinpoint that and choose to celebrate that. So you're just kind of replacing it, redirecting. You're redirecting that energy.
If people want to find out more about what you do, Martha, or connect with you, where can they find this information?
Well, thank you for asking. So to Barbara's readers, I have a blog, and it is called Surviving Your Split. So if you just go to survivingyoursplit.com, you can find all the information about what I do as a divorce blogger as well as a divorce coach. And I kind of have an incentive welcome gift. If you guys sign up for my newsletter, what you get as a free gift is kind of your ultimate divorce goddess recovery guide. And in that guide, it's completely free. It's going to kind of teach you how to break away from the drama, how to, if you're feeling crazy, how to better organize your thoughts, and how to look ahead. And so if you guys want to go to Surviving Your Split and sign up for that, I would love to have you as a member of the community and to receive free updates on the newsletter. And we talk about a lot on Surviving Your Split. So any of those blog posts, you can type in an emotion in the search bar, and I guarantee you there's going to be a blog post addressing that and simple steps that you can use yourself to get over any of those negative feelings you have. And although it is more directed towards people going through divorce, all of that content and the things in the blog are completely applicable for any kind of breakup.
Thank you, Martha. I'll put the link to your blog in the show notes. Thank you for coming on Breakup Recovery Podcast and sharing your tips and ideas and about surviving the holiday season by yourself. And we talked about expectations, selected memories and putting yourself first. I think they're all great tips and ideas that people can put in place, or at least give a thought about as they're trying to get through the holiday season after their breakup.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for having me. And to everybody out there who's listening, I hope you have the merriest of Christmas or any other holiday that you celebrate during this time of year. Happy New Year, and I'll see you guys in 2018.
I hope you enjoyed listening to this episode number 112, How to Survive the Holiday Season as a Single Person with Martha Bodyfelt. Martha shared some practical tips and ideas that you can implement into your life so that not only in the holiday season, but any time that you are having these feelings of sadness, despair and anguish, be it an anniversary, a birthday, or an occasion like that, you can put some of these tips in place that you can feel more in control and happier. If you think the information shared in this podcast could help someone you know, I hope you will tell them about Breakup Recovery and share it with them so that they too can get some ideas, strategies and tips to help them through their own breakup. They can download it in Apple Podcast, Stitcher, iHeartRadio and my website. We are fast approaching the end of 2017 and I'm going to be taking a hiatus for a few months. So this is my last episode for 2017. As you can guess by my accent that I live in Australia and our summer has just started. This is the time of year that we go on vacation, spend time with our families, and that is what I want to do. So I've decided to take a break and I will resume the podcasts in late February 2018. I've been doing Breakup Recovery podcasts for 2 years now without a break, and there are so many episodes for you to choose to listen to, which I hope you do. So I'd like to wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and I'll see you in 2018. And the last thing I'd like to say is, be gentle on yourself. You deserve happiness.
If you would like to hear previous Breakup Recovery podcasts, visit barbarastevens.com.au. Connect with Barbara Stevens on social media with Barbara Stevens Breakup Recovery Mentor on Facebook and at You'll Be Okay on Twitter. Read further blogs, view webinar replays, and download your free ebook, 3 Easy Steps to Surviving Your Breakup, and much more at barbarastevens.com.au.